Welcome everyone. Welcome to Ask the Dietitian. My name is Lori Bombacco. I'm an oncology dietitian and I'm presenting live at Cancer Wellness Center for one of my favorite programs, Ask the Dietitian, where we choose a topic for the month and we allow our participants who register for the program to submit the question related to the topic that they want me to answer. Now, our topic this month, I guess, was so popular. It's all about healthy eating over the holidays. We had so many questions that were submitted, actually 14 in total. So there is a good chance that I won't be able to get through all 14 today. I'm going to try my best, but I do want to spend the time to answer each question adequately. So if we run out of time, I'm going to end the program right at 1:30, and we may schedule part 2 for this November edition of Ask the Dietitian. So thank you for joining. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome. And thank you for our participants who registered for the program. You will get a copy of this presentation as well as the recipes, and there are quite a few this month, some recipes to consider for your holidays. And I'm going to share my screen now. Thank you for joining, and we're going to get moving. So I shared, my name is Lori Bombacco. I'm an oncology dietitian. This is our healthy eating over the holidays, Ask the Dietitian. And I think it can be challenging at times, no matter what your habits are related to eating and your beliefs and desires for nutrition, it can be challenging to eat around others who might feel differently. And especially around the holidays when things can be even more stressful. So I think what I would hope for all of you is to honor what you truly believe and desire for yourself as it relates to a cancer protective diet. And I hope to give you some fuel to support you in that process. So on the agenda, I want to first just share some additional November food holidays that you might not know about. We're going to get to those questions, 14 in total, and I'm going to try my best to answer them. And then I'm going to share some additional recipes and resources for you all. So not only, we just celebrated Halloween. It's like the kickoff to the holiday season, right? But there are other holidays to consider even every year if you'd like. So in November, I've listed just a handful of some of the ones that you may be curious to celebrate for yourself. And some of them include specific foods. Some include some movement, and I kind of like the idea of on the 17th to take a hike. Why not, right? So really incorporating all of the elements of a cancer protective lifestyle. Also, during the entire month of November, it's Sweet Potato Awareness Month. Did you know that? So I can get behind that. There's a handful of different varieties of sweet potatoes, so you may see some popping up in stores, and I encourage you to try them and just to get some more variety and nutrition diversity into your diet. So let's move forward with those questions. What is the food you should most definitely stay away from during the holidays? Suggestions for healthy items to bring to relatives that everyone will enjoy? Is there a low-calorie eggnog, or should we just enjoy it as is? Do you have any interesting non-alcoholic cocktails you could drink? If you're skipping alcohol, is it acceptable to do a concoction of juices to be part of the crowd without consuming the liquor? Is there a recipe for a stuffing that would be nutritious and delicious plus easy? I think the easy is the most important component of this recipe, right? I'm looking for an easy one since it has become hard for me to stand at the counter. Are there fancy salads and vegetable casseroles to be strictly avoided? What are some healthier ways to prepare and enjoy holiday desserts? Suggestions for healthy low-calorie desserts to serve that are as tempting as traditional pies and cakes. So some similarities here with these questions. All great ones, right? Best low-carb suggestions. Is it more important to eat a lot of protein and greens or to focus on the full family meals, but balanced? If we're cooking, should we get organics for flour, syrup, sugars, berries, and green beans? Does it really help? Thank you. And the last two, protein for vegans. How do you serve a Thanksgiving dinner when a person has no appetite to eat? Those last two snuck in at the last moment, so I'm hopeful we can get to them. So let's start with that first one. What is the food to most definitely stay away from during the holidays? And this is tricky, right? We can sometimes feel this pull between eating what we really desire, especially around the holidays, because there's some great options. Or, we're torn, like we're supposed to eat healthy, right, for our health. So what are we supposed to do? Well, what food should we stay away from? To answer honestly, I wonder, should it be nothing? Should you not have to worry about avoiding anything? So I want to introduce a concept that a lot of dietitians are embracing, myself included. It's a non-diet approach to our health. So in a diet mentality versus a non-diet mentality, what are some of the differences? So a diet mindset is sort of rooted in fear, right? I'm afraid to eat that. Or if I eat that, something bad's going to happen, right? Whereas a non-diet mindset is rooted in self-love. If I choose this food, whether it's nutritious or not, it's because I want it. And it's because at the end of the day, I'm going to feel good about that decision because I'm trying to be good to myself. A diet mindset might be rigid, whereas a non-diet mindset might be flexible, right? So around the holidays, which are sort of just a special occasion, we don't eat the way we eat over the holidays all year long. So could we be a little more flexible over the holidays and give ourselves some permission to have some foods that might not otherwise be a part of our regular diet? In a diet mindset, we might feel kind of all or nothing, right? We have to eat this or we can't eat that, or really there's a lot of absolutes. In a non-diet mindset, there's some gentle awareness, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. A diet mentality might be about body image, right? And to kind of shrink a body size to what, society kind of dictates is desirable. Whereas in a non-diet mindset, we kind of let go of that ideal, right? And we're really focusing on choices to elevate our total health, both mind and body. So in this non-diet mindset, you may have heard this expression before that all foods fit and that we can actually achieve balance with nutrition and with savoring the foods that are maybe a little less nutritious. But all foods do fit and we don't have to be perfect, especially not over the holidays. But if I had to answer, right, if you're forcing me to answer this question, I would say be most mindful of alcohol consumption. And I give credit because there were a couple questions for those of you interested in reducing alcohol consumption. So I appreciate that. What we're concerned about alcohol is that really there's a spike in consumption over the holidays. And this is just one survey, but it seems like we tend to have more alcohol over the holidays, right? Men drink on average about 3 servings in a meal, right? Or during a holiday meal, whereas women might drink 2 or more over the holidays. So that's a little bit more than what the experts recommend for us in terms of alcohol consumption. But we know there's long-term and short-term effects of overconsumption of alcohol. So in the short term, it could lead to the risk for injuries or motor vehicle accidents or falls, and beyond those, some other short-term concerns. But long-term, the habitual overconsumption of alcohol can lead to some more significant health concerns, such as high blood pressure, the risk for heart disease, the risk for stroke. It's actually linked with cancer, and there's 9 at the moment that they think are linked with excessive alcohol consumption. We do know that alcohol can suppress our immune function. That might be important to us right now, right, during this time of year, and also especially for someone who's been diagnosed with cancer. With everything else, so with all the other food choices, I would encourage mindful eating. And I'm going to explore this with you in a moment. When we eat mindfully, we really tap into all of our senses, and that might allow us to really be present and savor what we're eating so that we eat probably the amount that our body actually needs, right? And we don't feel bad about it because we're really not judging it. And that's mindful eating. And what the research has suggested with mindful eating is that it may help us eat in a way that aligns with our health goals, which is really nice, right? We're going to move on to the next question. So what are some suggestions for healthy items to bring for our relatives to enjoy? So I thought about this for a while, and I thought, like, maybe there's 3 things to consider or 3 steps to take if you're going to try this, right? So we could change some ingredients out of a traditional recipe. We could totally swap foods, and I'm going to explain this more in a moment. Or we can try something completely new and different. It's up to you. You can decide. So if we swap some ingredients out, what that means is maybe we would take the things that are less healthy, something like butter. So know what the butter's purpose is in the recipe. Sometimes substitutions aren't going to work, but maybe if you're making cakes or making muffins, could you make some substitutions so that you add nutrients, right? So I haven't tried this personally, but a medium avocado is the equivalent of 2 sticks of butter. And if you try that in a recipe, it might really lend to some delicious, yet still exceptionally nutritious options. Other swaps for butter are applesauce, pumpkin puree, Greek yogurt, bananas, mashed really super ripe bananas, olive oil even. So you get to decide if you want to make some of those substitutions. Each of these are going to infuse more nutrition into the recipe. So that's like a bonus. You also could make swaps for sugar. So if you do that, just pay attention to the substitution that you use and that you might need to reduce the amount of liquids that are in the original recipe. So for example, fruit has some liquid to it. So if you use some pureed fruit, like such as those pureed bananas, make sure they're as ripe as possible because that's the sweetest they're going to taste. That's a great substitute for sugar. Also, there's something called date paste that is available in a lot of grocery stores, and it's made from dates, and it's just dates. And do you know how naturally sweet and delicious those dates are? They are a great choice in reducing sugar. You also can apparently reduce up to about a third of the sugar in the original recipe without affecting the function of the sugar or the flavor of the end product. So it's worth considering and trying for yourself because it's just that much better. You also can make substitutions like oats for breadcrumbs. Talk about nutrition there. You could make a substitution of using plain Greek yogurt for sour cream. Now let's talk about some swaps in terms of food. So you can replace some or all in your traditional recipes. So a really classic example is your mashed potatoes. And could you replace some or all of it with some mashed parsnips or mashed cauliflower? There are lots of recipes online for you to look for. You could try cauliflower mac and cheese, right? What dietitian wouldn't love for you to eat cauliflower on the holidays? Replace candied nuts, right? I find that they're just sitting there. You know, we just tend to like mindlessly nosh on them, but even just swapping them with some roasted nuts, maybe you can even buy raw nuts and roast them yourself and add some extra flavor and spice and herbs, and you're adding more nutrition. You can swap out that classic green bean casserole with just some fresh green beans or some roasted Brussels sprouts, and they are delicious. It's an option, right? So it's up to you to decide. There are some great recipes for baked versions of latkes, or you can make a vegetable version. I love the idea, lots of cheese over the holidays too, like a cheese plate, right? Or a cheese ball. I love the idea of just adding some hummus to that same platter or board. And it's up to you to offer that or to use and take as much of that as you'd like. And then I recently tried this for myself, some baked apples. They are delicious. You're eating apples, right? And you could use minimum amounts of butter or sugar in those recipes. Each of these are going to add nutrients while replacing all of the extras, right? The extra saturated fats, the extra sugars. So any or all of these would be really a great step in the right direction. And then lastly, you could try something completely different. So I included each of these recipes for the participants who registered. They're just different takes to offer on classic dishes. So instead of stuffing like a wild rice dish, that middle image is some millet with some roasted carrots and some herbs. And it's like delicious and it's a beautiful presentation. And then lastly, there's a vegetarian shepherd's pie, and it's made with lentils and it's topped with some mashed sweet potatoes. Definitely delicious and certainly more nutritious. Now, I do want to share that I think you should know your audience, right? So they may fight back on this. You know, do they have particular preferences? Are they willing to try something new and different? Or are you going to just surprise them with a new dish? So I would ask for their feedback, ask for some suggestions. I think I love the idea of you trying this, embrace this opportunity, but manage your expectations of what the outcome might be. They may be reluctant or resistant to change, and they may make comments that make you otherwise feel bad. And I think that's a shame, right? So I want to just say kudos to you. And if you try this and it fails miserably, I hope you keep trying, because it only gets easier to communicate with your loved ones or people in your environment what you need for yourself and what you want for yourself. And that helps manage their expectations of you. And maybe it'll get easier for you to try new things and to introduce them to your loved ones. Okay, next question. What about eggnog? Is there a low-calorie eggnog? Does this exist, or should we just enjoy it as is? So the thing with eggnog, okay, so it's up there in calories, and it's because of the recipe and the ingredients in it. So it clocks in almost a little over 235 calories. The real concern is the 4.5 grams of saturated fat and the 20 grams of added sugar. That's up there, right? That comes in only a 4-ounce serving or half a cup. So if we're having more than that, or if we're having more than one serving over the holidays, it's going to add up, right? Not a major concern, right? Because all foods fit. So if you want to substitute with something lighter, good news. There's some options. But I would say otherwise, if you don't want to substitute because you love that eggnog, stick with it. Savor it. Really enjoy it. So here are some options for lighter eggnogs. There's products on the market if you want to look for them. This is one brand called Elmhurst, and it's made from oat milk. So it clocks in at lower calories, obviously, because there's less saturated fat and there's less added sugar. Same with this brand. They make a holiday nog. So a little less calories, a little less, 0 saturated fat, and 8 grams of added sugar. You also could make your own version. I included a recipe, again, for those who have registered for the program. You can make a lighter version of an eggnog for yourself if you're daring to try. So those are your options, and you can really make that decision based on your needs. Okay, next question. Next set of questions. Do you have any interesting non-alcoholic cocktails we could drink? If you're skipping alcohol, is it acceptable to do a concoction of juices to be part of the crowd? I think that's part of it, right? You don't want to feel left out. Well, guess what? Yes. Have you heard of mocktails? You don't have to be left out. You can enjoy something beautiful and delicious. I mean, each of these images are just so enticing to me, and they're all alcohol free. So they're all made with either different ingredients or actually alcohol substitutes. So if you haven't heard of them, there are, and I only have listed here a handful of the available options. There are a lot of non-alcoholic brands because this is a welcomed trend. There are a lot of people interested in reducing their alcohol consumption. And I'm like, it's about time, right? So we have so many different options available on the market that you can explore for yourself. They come in various sizes, like single serve drinks versus regular size that you can make your own mocktails with. So I included a couple recipes for you to try for yourself over the holidays. And I think this is a great thing to introduce to loved ones, because you might be surprised there may be someone else in the crowd that's willing to join you. So you can do this and really significantly reduce your consumption of calories as well, but reduce the alcohol consumption, and then reap the benefits, right, of making something kind of fancy and still feeling like you're part of what everyone else is doing. Next question, the recipe that's easy, nutritious, and delicious. I don't know if I'm up for the challenge on this one, because I think this was a tough one. So is there a nutritious stuffing that's easy to make? Well, first of all, are we talking about a stuffing or a dressing? Does anyone know the difference between the two? Right, so a stuffing is the recipe calls for us to put it inside the cavity of the bird. So we can make maybe a dressing, because maybe that is made outside of the bird, and it might be a little bit easier for us to make. I found the recipe that uses the slow cooker, and I thought maybe that could be easier because it's literally just putting everything. You could sit down at the table and you can prep everything and just put it right inside the slow cooker. That might be easy. Or here's a great option. I know a lot of people that do this. Order Thanksgiving to go. You don't have to order the entire meal, but maybe order the dressing to go from a lot of different stores, especially grocery stores. They do this now. So it's up to you to decide, but maybe take a look at the recipes I included to decide if that's easier for you. Next question. Are the fancy salads and vegetable casseroles to be strictly avoided now? This is similar to that very first question, right? Like, are we supposed to avoid anything? Not really, right? We don't have to avoid anything. So I want you to think about eating without food guilt, right? Taking that non-diet approach. So if you ask yourself questions like, do I deserve this? Or am I going to pay for this later? That's our brain talking, right? That's not our body talking. And if we continue to think this way, chances are, especially if we're restricting ourselves, we're going to cave, because that's just us. Our bodies are designed to want food, right? We need food. So whenever we restrict, chances are we're going to cave and we're going to enjoy that food. And that's a good thing, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't survive if we kept restricting ourselves. So if we are thinking that way and we're restricting, this could create a cycle. And that could mean that we eat something and then we feel bad about it, or we feel ashamed that we did something. And I don't know if that's a great cycle to be in, especially over the holidays, right? So there may be some steps that I want to introduce for you to consider that may bring you to a place where you can eat without feeling guilty. I would say first and foremost, try not to restrict. This actually, what happens when we restrict ourselves from eating, our body responds. Our body needs food, right? So if we're restricting for too long, this could lead to low blood sugars. And well, when the body has low blood sugars, there's an overwhelming response from our bodies, a lot of different chemicals and compounds to tell us to eat. So imagine how hard it is to fight that. And that's biology. I don't think we're going to win that fight. So this is a primal biological mechanism, and it's not a matter of willpower, no matter what you might read, right? Or what people say. So you're not a bad person if you give in to that desire to eat. Mindful eating is a super great way to approach eating in a way that satisfies you and also helps you satisfy your mind and your body, right? So if we pay attention in the moment when we're eating without any judgment, this allows us to really fully experience the moment. And when we do that, we're more likely to eat what we want, but also how much we really want and need. So it tends to help us avoid that, that overeating cycle. Because if we eat mindlessly, we're not really paying attention. And then we miss the experience, and then we want to overcompensate for that. So we end up eating more. The third step is to forget about this idea of forbidden foods, right? Food is not harmful, right? And in a single moment of eating or in small amounts within the bigger setting of our lifestyle, food is not going to be dangerous, okay? So once in a while, occasional special holidays, that doesn't happen all year long, right? So we know that that's okay, and that actually can fit into a healthy lifestyle. And then the last step is try not to second guess or question foods, right? Like I think just letting go, right? Avoiding that inner dialogue and letting go and just saying, you know what, I'm going to have this because it's okay, right? It's only one small thing that I'm eating within the total of my diet. So a little bit more on eating without food guilt. Some try to enjoy a smaller amount of the food that they may have labeled previously as forbidden. So they just have little tastes of it, and that works for them. So if you want to try that, great. If you don't, that's okay too, right? It may help to have a plan for how to handle your feelings after you've had a holiday eating episode, right? Or after eating something that you thought was once forbidden. Have a plan for how to handle that response that you have to that, right? So be ready to talk back to that inner voice that tries to make you feel guilty or ashamed for doing what you did. And this is called self-love, right? So we want to practice some affirmations, and I've listed some there for you as well. And these are super important as we're embracing like the holidays when things are really stressful and we're worried, especially if we've been diagnosed with cancer, that anything we do is going to set us off. It's okay. I promise that we don't have to be perfect, and the occasional overeating is not going to destroy a healthy diet, right? You can always get right back on track. But some of these affirmations are really important to think about as it relates to what your relationship with food is. And we can eat in a way that's peaceful so that we can feel good, mind and body, about the foods that we eat. I think this is going to be the last question for today. So, what are some ways to prepare and enjoy healthier holiday desserts? And what are some suggestions for healthier, low-calorie desserts to serve that are as tempting as traditional pies and cakes? So these are just some desserts with a healthy twist. Now remember, let's define what healthier means. It just means more nutrients, which is a bonus, right? And less, if we can help it, of the extras like the sugar and the saturated fats that the experts want us to minimize. So here's some examples here, and I included a couple of them in the recipes. For those of you who registered, you'll get a copy of them. And they're just swap outs, like I mentioned earlier. So what you're doing is you're using ingredients very intentionally to try to change the original recipe. So what you're doing is you're sort of mimicking the original, hoping it still tastes the same and has the same kind of consistency and outcome, especially if you're baking. And then still is as delicious, right? But just slightly nutritious. I would say sometimes you cannot beat the original, right? And so keep that in mind. I think if you really have a favorite cookie, a favorite pie, a favorite dessert of yours, sometimes there's no substitution for that. So I would say just keep that in mind. But I really love, especially this last one, a dark chocolate bark made with some nuts and some dried fruit. Think about how nutritious that is, and yet delicious. So I included a recipe, and it's one that I know I'm going to be trying this holiday season. And also, too, I just wanted to share the grapes. Now, this isn't until New Year's Eve, but this is a tradition in Spain, if any of you are aware or not. And what they do on New Year's Eve is they try to eat 12 grapes, and they do this at midnight. And the idea is that it's one grape for each chime of the clock and each month of the year. And it's thought that it'll bring good luck. And I love a tradition like that, right? That dates back to like eons ago. And so thinking about how to introduce some sort of tradition like this for yourself or for your loved one, this may be a great way to kind of think about your holidays in a different way that suits you and serves your purpose. Now, with that being said, I see it is right now 1:30. So I'm going to stop my share there. And I know we have a handful of questions to continue. So I think we're going to have a part 2 of this version of Ask the Dietitian.